old-time religion is just a thing of the past. But in this modern age that we're living, it's the only thing that will last. I hope it's built on happiness and Jesus' love and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest friend, but only thee.
go. You're here tonight. Boy, I tell you, that breeze feels really good tonight, doesn't it? I tell you, the pastor said we've always got a good breeze up on the mountain. Just kind of waiting for it to come through, aren't you all? Kind of like my wife, our son called on the way up from North Carolina, and she said the roads have been really good, traffic's been really good. And as soon as we hung up, things went downhill, and they've been downhill ever since. And I said, don't ever tell him the traffic's good again. So, preacher, maybe you need to say most of the time we've got a good breeze up there. I'm very honored. And I count it an honor to come and to be in your church and preach behind your door. I said that last night, and I mean that. Pastor Thacker and his church, I do count it an honor, a privilege to be able to come and share the Word of God. I do not take the invitation lightly, and I appreciate you inviting me and my wife to come to be here. My wife is on the front row. I've said this a couple nights, and I'll say it again tonight. She has had a stroke back in 2012. And so basically, she does not walk very good. She doesn't walk around real good. And so she'll stay there until I get ready to leave, and we'll go out together. And I'll help her a little bit. So if you want to talk to her, feel free to come by and talk with her. I think quite a few ladies came up last night, and she told me that. Such encouragement to her. Because before she had her stroke, she was around the church. She was everywhere, talking to everybody. And so she enjoys, well, she's like most ladies. She enjoys talking. I don't know too many ladies that don't like to talk. Now, we men, we're quiet.
No.
Who said no? All right. Yeah, we men like to talk too. Yeah, that's true. Well, Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5. What I want to say tonight, there will be some things in the message that may pertain to you, and it may not. Hopefully there will be some places in this message that everyone, it will pertain to everyone. There may be some things in here tonight that may be sensitive. What I mean by that is that everyone is in different situations in your life. And I surely don't want to hurt anyone. I want to be a help and a blessing. And maybe if it doesn't pertain to you, maybe you can take the words that we learned tonight and study tonight, and maybe you can take them and take them back home and keep them in your heart. And the opportunity may come to where you will meet a loved one, or you can share what you have learned tonight. And so, anyway, I trust it will be a help to all of us, and it will be a blessing to our hearts. Let's all stand. We'll read the scripture tonight, or 2 verses tonight, or 3 verses. Chapter 5, verse 6 through 8. For when we were yet without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. I sure am glad he died in my place. I failed to say anything about the music. I thought about the music as a 3-minute verse. I enjoy the music. Did you all enjoy the music? Yeah, good. Appreciate the choir, and preacher, I appreciate the special. I wouldn't mind just coming down and just singing for us in our church. Amen. So anyway, it was a real blessing to my heart. I'm glad that Christ died for the ungodly. That's me. That's me. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die. Yet peradventure for a good man some would even dare to die. But God commended, He proved, He demonstrated, He showed. God commended His love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I know you have, but would you pray? Would you ask God to give you something tonight? Would you do that, please, as we pray? Father, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to come to this dear church and to be with these dear folks who have assembled together. We thank you for the pastor. Thank you for the pastors that are here and the churches that are represented. Thank you for the sacrifice that they have made to travel. And we ask you now once more that through thy word that you would speak to all of our hearts. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. I do like to turn to the Scriptures. Most of you all know that by now. You've heard me preach much at all. The book of Ephesians, chapter 5. Ephesians, chapter 5. Ephesians 5. God commended His love towards us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I'm glad that He loved us. And you know what? It says that while we were yet sinners. Can I make a statement tonight? You were not lovable that God decided to love you. God didn't look down there and say, you know what? Those folks that are in Maine, they are such sweet people. I'm going to love those folks. No, you folks are just the same type of folks that we have down in North Carolina. We're all sinners, aren't we? Yeah. We're either saved by grace or we're lost sinners, one or the other. And so I think about the fact that God loved us not because we were lovely or lovable. In fact, often our attitudes are not very lovable. Often our lives are not very lovely, are they? And so I want to talk tonight about a subject, and I've titled this message tonight, that love is a choice. Love is a choice. We make choices all the time. Read some scriptures here. You know the answer. I know the answer, but I'd like for you to just tell me the answer. In chapter 5 and verse 22, chapter 5, verse 22, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. Now, every man who's married has that verse memorized, don't we, men? Oh, me. And so, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands. Now, let me ask you a question. You know the answer. I know the answer. Is this a command or a suggestion? Command. 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 All right, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Question again, is this a command or is it a suggestion? Command. Command. Did you hear what you just said? You just said that that was a command. Husbands, love your wives. May I say, commands are given. God has given commands to be what? To be obeyed. Obeyed. They're given to be obeyed. Submission, wives submit. Submission is a command. We all agree with that. You just said so. And if it's a command to do so, then you and I have a will. We have a choice in the matter. You ladies have a choice in the matter. Your husband says, no, we cannot afford it. Absolutely not. And you say, well, I want it anyway. And I got the credit card, and I got the checkbook, and we're going to have it whether... Now, you just made a choice. Right? That's your choice. Same thing with wives or husbands loving your wives. Same thing. I'm I'm getting to a point tonight, I'm trying to say something tonight. Love is a command, and so love, then if I'm going to love somebody, it is a matter of my will. Right? It's a matter of my will. God did, we sometimes we think about marriage and we say, boy, she's so lovely and she's so sweet. But all of a sudden, about the first morning after you got married, all of a sudden she gets up and her hair doesn't look the same as you've ever seen it in your life. And her breath doesn't smell nothing like what you smelled before, right? But now you've got a choice to make. You're going to love her or you're not going to love her. Do you get the point what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay. I hope you do. And so I'm trying to say tonight that God loved me because He loved me. He willed to love me. He chose to love me, not because I was loved. Right. And so I think about, I believe that in order, the most important thing in life, the most important decision in life is to get saved. Would you agree with that? Salvation. Salvation. I'm not dealing with that. My friend, if you don't know that you're going to heaven when you die, that's the most important decision you will ever make in your life. Salvation. You're here tonight, you can be saved. You can walk out these doors rejoicing, knowing that you are going to heaven when you die. That's the truth. But now, the second most important decision, I think, in a person's life, the second most important decision is the person that they will marry. Would you agree with that? Second most important decision is who are they going to marry? Can I ask you a question tonight? Why do people get married? I was reminiscing in my life. I was reminiscing back when my wife and I we decided to get married. You know what we said? We love each other. I told her, I love you. She said to me, I love you. And you know what? We decided we loved each other and we were going to get married. And that's just natural that we think about that in light of that statement that we love each other, we're going to get married. And so here's a couple and they fall in love, they start meeting, they spend time together, and they share things together, and all of a sudden they fall in love. And he says to her, I have fallen in love with you. Will you marry me? And she says to herself, I have fallen in love with him. And he's in love with me. He wants to marry me, and so she says yes. And he says, whoopee, let's go ask Mom and Dad. Right? Now, I know that's not popular today, is it? I don't care what Mom and Dad says. But anyway, what do? They go and they ask Mom and Dad. Say, Mom, Dad, we want to get married. So you know what Dad says? You know what the first thing he says is? Do you love each other? Right? Do you love each other? And so when they say, oh yes, we love each other and we want to get married. And the dad says, well, if you love each other, then I guess you were to get married. So then they go down to the preacher. They talk to the preacher. And the preacher talks to them. They say, we want to get married, preacher. And the preacher says, do you love each other? And they say, oh yes, we are just so in love. We love each other. We can't wait to get married. Will you marry us? Well, I see no reason why you shouldn't get married because you love each other. Now, isn't that kind of the way it goes today? Huh? Help me out a little bit. Y'all can nod with me or something. And so, it's good that they're in love. But can I make a statement tonight? Love is not the reason to get married. Did you hear what I said? I'm going to say it again. Love is not the reason to get married. I'll probably say it again later on. But if I had a $20 bill for every time my wife and I have sat down with a couple who have been married for 10, 15, 20 years. You know what they said? We don't love each other anymore. So we got married because we loved each other. That was the reason we got married, because we loved each other, right?
Yes.
So now that we don't love each other anymore, we ought to get unmarried, right? I mean, that's just common sense. And so we're gonna get divorced. And again, I'm not here to hurt anyone. And I realize we've got different folks and different situations and marriages and so on. But I'm trying to give the truth tonight that I think will be a help to all of us. It's something that you can take and use, okay? And so anyway, I'm saying tonight that the lesson here is love is not the reason to get married, because people fall out of love. And then they use that excuse. And for years, preacher, I didn't know what to say. Well, you don't love each other. And the only thing I knew to do was just say, well, do what you used to do when you fell in love. And I think that's maybe a good answer. But really, I believe now that the wrong motive to get married is love. You say, preacher, the only reason we got married is because we loved each other. Well, stay married, okay? I'm not saying that you should get unmarried because you got married because of that. But what is marriage? Look back in the book of Genesis real quick tonight. And I'm not going to preach just on marriage, so hang with me tonight. I do want to bring in some of the thoughts tonight along this line of love. But Genesis 2, and if the preacher can move on quickly, we can get to some other points. But chapter 2 and verse 18. Just for the sake of time, let's just drop down to verse 21. Verse 21. Chapter 2 of Genesis, verse 21. I want you to look, this is the first marriage. First marriage in the Bible. Adam and Eve. Now I want you to tell me how many times you find the word love. Okay, tell me. Watch carefully as I read it tonight, verse 21. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife. He's to cleave unto her wife because he loves her. No. No. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. How many times you find the word love in there?
None.
First marriage.
None.
Huh?
None.
None. Then where do we get the philosophy that you've got to be in love in order to get married? The only thing that I do see in this here about marriage is that God brought Eve to Adam. I think that's the key. You say, well, if marriage is not the reason we get married, then what is the reason we get married? I really do believe God brought to Adam only one woman. He didn't bring 5 girls and say that, Adam, you pick out the one you want. Right? He didn't do that. He brought one. And I do believe that God made one for me. And he brought her to me. You could look at people's lives. You say, well, how did you all meet? And some people could tell some interesting stories of how you met. Amen? Your husband was telling us a few stories about him. But I'm not going to talk about how you met. But he was sharing a little bit how you all met. But anyway, you know what? We all have different interesting stories, but it's amazing how God can bring us together. And so anyway, God brought Adam and Eve together. And so I see, number one, a biblical marriage is is not based on being in love, because Adam and Eve were not in love when God brought them together. Second of all, Malachi chapter 2. Malachi chapter 2. That's in the last book in the Old Testament. Malachi chapter 2. Malachi chapter 2. A biblical marriage is a covenant before God. It's a covenant before God. Malachi chapter 2, verse 14. Malachi 2:14. He says, "Yet ye say, wherefore? Because the Lord hath been witness. The Lord hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. Yet," watch it, "is she thy companion." I think that's a very important word. I'm not preaching on marriage this week, so we'll leave it alone. "But yet is she thy companion and the wife of thy" what? What's the next word?
Covenant.
Covenant. We talked about that Monday night, didn't we? Covenant. Right. God makes a covenant. And you know what? Mankind makes a covenant. When you stood before the preacher or the justice of the peace, and he said, "Do you promise and take her?" and all these words, and you say, "I do." You were making a vow. You were giving a vow before the preacher and the audience, but also before God. God, I believe. In fact, whenever I preach, do a marriage ceremony, we invite God into the service. I mean, we are standing here before this company and before God to join this man and this woman together. And so marriage is a biblical marriage is a covenant before God. You notice the word witness in there? You notice the word witness? He's a witness. Of course, God was there. He saw what went on. I'm not sure if I were to take the time to look over there or not. But anyway, you just think about tonight that this is a covenant agreement that's been made. And it was a lifelong agreement that you made, that I made, when we got married. And many marriages, I realize, many marriages have fallen out and have broken up, and I understand that. There are some marriages that have remained together, and the only reason they remain together, preacher, we don't love each other, but we're staying together because of the kids. And I've heard people say that. I've heard people say, well, we don't love each other, but I gave a promise, I vowed, and so they basically stay together. By the way, there's a verse over in Corinthians, I'm not dealing with separation, divorce, but it does say, if you can't abide in peace, okay, let them depart, okay? So I want to bring that out. I'm just trying to give you what the scriptures are giving tonight, and this verse here is telling us that God was there as a witness, and it was a covenant agreement, and it was binding to her as well as to me. When my wife and I gave that agreement, it's binding to both of us. And so as we fall in love or fall out of love, we still have made that agreement. Thirdly, and here's what I'm going to spend more time on. We've already saw the verse, husbands, love your wives. So love is of what? Choice. A biblical marriage must include the choice of marriage. Of love, excuse me. A biblical marriage must include the choice to love. You say, preacher, what if I don't feel like I'm in love with her? You know what I think you ought to do? Do it anyway. You say, well, I don't love her. Do it anyway. But yeah, preacher, I just don't love her. She's so hateful, and love her anyway. So what do you mean? God says, husbands, love your wife. So then if you, I hate to use this word, but if you do not love your wife, then that's what we call disobedience, or be more down where we understand it, to not love your wife is to be what? Called sin, right? Sin. It's called sin. And so love, think about it now. I said at the beginning of this, love is a choice. It's a matter of the will, right? Come in. Does God ever tell us something we can't do? No. And so the Bible says to love your enemies. Can you imagine my enemy? Oh, Mr. Enemy, I just love you so much. No. It's a matter of my will, right? You've got a neighbor. Anybody got a neighbor that you can't... Don't you raise your hand so nobody watches. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've got people that we have a hard time loving, don't we? Sure we do. But yet the Bible says to love your enemies. But I say unto you, Luke 6, I say unto you which hear, love your enemies, do good to them which hate you. So we are commanded to love our enemies. That tells me then that I can love someone who is unlovable and unlovely. Right? God never told me to love somebody that I couldn't love. I believe we can love them with the fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of the Spirit. And so, what does it mean to love an enemy, by the way? What does it mean to love an enemy? I mean, you ever heard this? I'm just going to fall in love with my enemy. No, you're not going to fall in love with your enemy. He said, preacher, I done fell out with my enemy. And so it's a matter of your will. You got someone in your job, someone you can't stand, someone you just almost, preacher, it's almost hate. I mean, preacher, he's nothing but an enemy. Yet God says to love them. And it says do good to them. Exodus 23 verse 4, listen to this verse. It says, if thou meet thine enemy's ox, if you meet your enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. That tells me that I've got to go out of my way to do something to help my enemy out. If I truly love my enemy, I have got to go out of my way, stop what I'm doing. There's his animal, and I've got to get a hold of that animal and say, I know where you belong. Well, back up there. I don't even like to say his name. You know where you go. Come on. Love your enemy? You're going to have to put in action then. You're going to have to do some things. You're going to have, and I'm going to have to put into action and do some things in order to show our love to our enemy. You know what? Your enemy might look at you coming up the road with his animal and say, what is got into him? And he might start scratching his head and say, is he taking it away or is he bringing it back? I'm trying to say love is a choice. And you choose, and I choose, to love others. There's some people who are lost without Jesus, and they need somebody to love them. Somebody is watching you and watching how you react to them, how they treat you. They preacher, they treat me bad. They may be true. They don't care how they treat you, but they care how you react to the way they treat you. Somebody's watching. Somebody's watching. Love is a choice. Love requires, I believe, choosing. It's not an accident. It's not an accident to love somebody. And so, marriage, you think about marriage, you get married, you live happily ever after. That might be in the Cinderella story. But that's not in real life, is it? That's not real life at all. 1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians 13. Interesting verse. 1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians 13. Look at verse 4. 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 4. Charity. Charity. We use today the word love, but charity charity suffereth long. What does that mean? It means long suffering. Long suffering. And so, have you ever heard someone say, I'm just going to fall into being long suffering?
No.
Huh? I'm just going to start falling into being long suffering, preacher. No. If I'm going to be long suffering, I'm not going to make a choice, right? I'm going to have to choose to be long suffering. And that comes in marriages, but that also comes in churches, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes people rub you the wrong way. That ever happened? They rub you the wrong way. And so what do? You've got to learn to be long-suffering. Love, charity is suffereth long, and the next phrase says, is kind. Same thought about the cow. Your neighbor, your enemy's cow got loose, you take it back. You find a way to be kind. Amen? You find a way to be kind. Love is a choice. Love is a choice, and you choose to be kind or you choose to be unkind. Can I ask you a question? Would you all agree tonight with your husband, your wife, those who are married tonight? Be honest, your husband might be here. He might be watching you now, ladies. Have you ever been a little bit unkind to your husband? Huh? You chose to be like that. You chose to be like that. You chose, as sometimes I use the expression, you chose to be hateful. Right? And if you was kind to him, you chose to be kind. You say, preacher, I had to choose to be kind because he is never lovely enough for me to love him and show kindness any other way. This principle of love and choice could be carried on, I guess, for a series of messages when we do that. Let me give you, I know it's hot, 5 things real quickly that I think will make a difference in our lives. 5 things concerning love and choice. First thing I want to say is don't try to determine if you are in love. You're here tonight, you're single, and you're contemplating marriage. You say, I want to get married. Don't try to decide if you are in love or not. You decide, is this the will of God? Preachers, I don't know if you all do it or not, but I've considered of having a couple sign a paper. I'm not picking. Sign a paper stating, we believe that this is the absolute will of God. I'm not going to ask them to sign a paper if they're in love or not, but I have thought about asking them to sign a paper. We both are saved, and we both believe this is the will of God. I think that would be good. I think that would be good. So don't try to determine if you're in love, but determine if it's the will of God for you to be married. To young people, decide if this is the will of God. Say, how do you do that, preacher? We'll talk to your pastors. Okay? Talk to your pastors. And anyway, something I would say along this line about single people and about marriage and so on. I see it in a lot of churches. The churches, I'm not in a lot of churches, but a lot of times people try, especially the adults who are supposed to be mature, try to push young people into marriage. I think that's wrong. I think you are giving a disservice to young people when you try to pressure them and say, oh, you're 16 years old and you're not married, you're going to be an old man. You better get at it. You better find you a boyfriend. I think actually, seriously, I'm serious. I am dead serious. I am dead serious. I think that is wrong. You're putting the wrong thoughts in young people's lives. Let God bring them a mate. Let God do it. And when you start putting pressure, before you know it, you know what's going to happen? They feel the pressure, and every week you say, you haven't found a girlfriend yet, you haven't found a boyfriend. You need to get get married, I mean, you need to move out of your house and out of your mom and dad's house. And our son Mark, I'd have to stop. I'd have to stop and calculate when he got married. But I don't remember ever. Now you may disagree. That's fine. But he didn't get married to in his late 20s, I think it was. And I never ever, to my knowledge, never ever said you need to get out of this house and get you a wife and get married and get out. Never did. Never did. I mean, you don't push people. Listen, if I pushed him into a marriage, and somewhere down the road he gets a divorce, you know what I'm going to think? Did I push him the wrong way? Did I push him in the wrong direction? Did I push him to the wrong person? I'm saying tonight, let God do the work. Let God do the work. And so anyway, be careful of harping with young people about finding a mate. And so anyway, I've already talked about the fact that number two. Choose to love your spouse even when you fall out of love. Okay? I've already touched on that. I'm not going to say much more about it. But choose to love your spouse even when you fall out of love. And I've already said, some people so out of love don't love her or love him anymore. Then confess it. Confess it. You hear me? I said confess it. Confess it to God. I don't love her no more. Don't tell me, don't tell her. Tell God, I'm sorry. Because I am disobeying you. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Come on, preacher.
You're disobeying God. If God has said, love your wives, husbands, if the wives are to teach their children to love their husbands, when we don't obey the Word of God, what do we need to do, preacher? Confess it. Get on the altar and say, God, I have sinned. I have sinned against my mate. Forgive me. Amen. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. And so choose to love your spouse even when you fall out of love. Number 3, real quickly. Choose to love your spouse even when you fall in love with somebody else. I'm sure these preachers, if they've counseled much at all, they've talked to couples, and the man says, well, I found somebody else. Or the woman says, I found somebody else that I love now. I don't love him no more, don't love her no more, but I found somebody else. And so you got to choose to love your spouse. And so anyway, I guarantee you, Satan will do all he can to give you somebody else that will get your attention. And I say to everyone from the pulpit all the way to the back to Pastor Thacker standing up, all the way, every one of us, the devil will do what he can to disrupt what you are involved in. If you're married, he will do what he can to disrupt it and destroy it. And one way he can do that is send someone by on the job that will get your attention. So choose to love your spouse even when you fall in love with someone else. Number 4, choose to love your spouse because you made a promise before God. Choose to love them because you made a promise before God. Ecclesiastes. If it's colder in here and we have the time, I would do it. But basically, Ecclesiastes says that if you make a vow, you better make sure you pay it. Now, that's not King James, okay? That's a paraphrase, okay? But you go over in chapter 5, Ecclesiastes, and it talks about the fact that if you make a vow, you better keep it. You better keep that vow. And so choose to love your spouse because you made a promise to God. And then fifthly, I think men, we must choose to love our wives if we hope to picture Christ's love for the church. Christ's love for the church is such a beautiful picture. And a husband and wife relationship is a picture of Christ and the church, or the bride of Christ. And so I'm saying tonight, choose to love your wives if we hope to picture Christ's love for the church. I'm almost done. Let me just share this illustration, if I may. Imagine the world's most handsome man. There's nobody in here tonight, I can assure you. I look. But seriously, imagine the world's most handsome man in all the world. Imagine the man who is the most intelligent man in all the world. He's handsome. He's the most intelligent in all the world. The wisest man in all the world, the wisest man. And if that's not enough, he's also, number 4, he's the richest man in all the world. You say, let me stand in line. He's looking for a wife. He's looking for a wife. Do you hear me? He's looking for a wife. Finally, it's announced one day he's found her. You say, who is she? Let me give you a little bit of a description of her. She is the ugliest woman in the whole world. She's the dumbest woman in the whole world. She's the poorest woman in the whole world. And she's got the worst breath of any woman in the whole world. And you know what we say? Why would he choose to love her? You just said it. He chose to love her. Amen? Amen. Now, that illustration is just it's so weak of an illustration to illustrate our God, who is the wisest, the strongest, the richest in all the universe. But he loved an old sinner who was poor, helpless, can't even get up. He loved old poor sinners so much. You say, why did he do that, preacher? Because he willed to love us. But God commended his love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I'm glad he chose to love me. Because he had to choose me, he had to choose to love me, because he sure didn't see anything in me that made him love me. And he didn't see anything in you that all of a sudden made him love you. He chose to love you, my friend. He chose to love us. Aren't you glad that we have a wonderful Savior? And if he says that he loved us, and he tells us to love our mates, and to love our enemies, and to love our neighbors, that's the one next door. That's the one beside of you. In fact, neighbor, your enemies, I guess the enemy would almost fit in some homes today, wouldn't it? Seriously. We're to love each other. You said, preacher, can't do it. I believe you can. Because I don't think God ever tells us to do something we can't do. We can do it through the power of God, the Holy Spirit. Love is a choice. Love your children. Love your brethren. Love your neighbor. Love your enemies. love sinners, love God. We choose. We choose. Let's pray.
Now you may think I'm a little old-fashioned. Well, friend, that's all right with me. I'm so glad that I am a Christian, and from sin I have been set free. I know, there's no doubt about it. He lives in my heart, and I'm gonna shout it. I know, my sins are forgiven, and I'm on my way to a place that's called heaven. Not long ago at an old-fashioned altar, I knelt on my knees there in prayer. He lifted my burdens, sin shackles fell from me, and His presence was so real everywhere. Now that the load I carried is lighter, it changed my gray skies to blue. My steps are